Okay, this video will be for the clean finish binding. We'll be using the same bodice pieces that we did for the shoulder stay. So I've got my elastic already stitched into that shoulder. And then we're going to be putting a binding on this armhole area. So I'm going to open up my piece. So I've got that full armhole to work with. Our seam at the shoulder should go towards that back bodice piece. So make sure that that's kind of folded over in that direction. And then we're going to prepare our binding. So I'm going to set that aside. The other piece that you'll need to cut out is your clean edge binding block from your moderate stretch fabric. You'll just cut one of these. And then the first thing we're going to do with that piece is that we're going to fold it in half and press it. So we'll head over to the iron now and we'll go ahead and press that piece in half before we apply it to our garment. Okay, so we folded that piece wrong sides together and pressed it. So the wrong sides should be inside here touching each other, and you should be looking at the right side of the fabric on the outside. And then we're going to take that and begin pinning it onto our armhole on the right side of our garment. So I want to make sure that this stretches the full length of that armhole. So I'm going to start by pinning my two ends and then work my way through the middle. Again, when you get to that shoulder area, make sure that it is folded towards that back, and then you pin it so it stays that way when you stitch over it. Okay, now I'm ready to take this over to my serger, and we're going to serge that on all along that edge. Okay, over at my serger, again, I always want to start with that foot up so that I can get my pieces underneath the foot without them kind of slipping and sliding around. Put my foot down, and then I can begin serging. And we're just going to double check as we go to make sure that the edges of the band stay even with our armhole. Okay, over at our ironing board, we're going to stick that band off the edge of our garment. Our seam allowance should be sticking down on the inside, and we're just going to press that edge. Okay, once we've got that seam pressed, we're then going to come to the inside of our garment, and we're going to fold that band to the inside right on that seam line so that it just covers up our serging, and we're going to press that and pin it down. Okay, over at our sewing machine, this is our domestic sewing machine. We're going to set this up with our walking foot. I have a single needle, and then I've got my stretch thread on the needle and on the bobbin. So now we're going to take that binding that we did and we're going to top stitch that down. So over on the right side of the garment, I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch away from that folded edge, and it should catch that binding on the back. And this is just with a regular straight stitch. Since we have that stretch thread in there, it'll give us a little bit of stretch. So once that's complete, on the outside it should look like just a straight top stitch, and on the inside it should catch that band. And then because we did that stretch thread, it will have a little bit of stretch. It won't be super significant, but putting that band on there limits your stretch anyways, and so this will just give us a little bit of stretch with the garment. Okay, over at my serger, I'm going to pin together my side seam, and we're going to serge that side seam together now. But I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to start on the less bulky side, so where your band is, it'll be really bulky. If you try to start there, it may have trouble getting through the machine. So I'm going to start on that less bulky side and work my way over. Okay, now we're going to open this up, and that side seam is going to get pressed towards the back of your garment. And then we're going to take this back over to our domestic machine, and we're going to do a little stitch that will help hold that seam allowance over to the one side where it's pressed. Okay, back over at our domestic machine. Again, I've pressed that seam, or just folded it over towards the back side. And now we're going to do a strong back stitch right here, just where the band is, to help keep it pinned over to that side, even through laundering. Okay, so that's just a little stitch there, and it is quite bulky, so you may have to kind of help it through the machine in this case. Okay, so there is our finished, clean finish binding on the edge. you should just see that top stitching line from the outside, and then from the inside you should see that full binding that is caught with that stitch. And then right at the side seam we've got our seam allowance just held over to that one side by that strong back stitch.